What is up, everyone? Welcome to a special edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Dan Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Very important announcement: all rights are reserved to the rightful owner. Own no copy, own no rights to whatever that is. Just thought I'd do something to keep the channel from getting bland or stale or anything like that. But hope you enjoyed the special intro. Welcome to the show. Now, as we all know, today is the birthday of John Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose. But today I thought I'd do something a little more fun and different and pay tribute to one of the things he was part of, the Shield, since we are in the 10th anniversary of the Shield, which includes Seth Rollins and the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. So let's do a top 10 countdown of my all time favorite Shield matches. Let's start at number 10. We have a match between The Shield versus Big Show, Sheamus, and Randy Orton. And legend has it that Sheamus is still chanting banger after banger after banger from Friday night. Nonetheless, this was The Shield's first WrestleMania at WrestleMania 29, where they would go on to defeat the guys. And of course, Dean Ambrose was the one that got the pinfall victory for the Shield. And also, it didn't help matters for Shield's opponents that there were a lot of egos going around and Big Show barely got time in, which is why Big Show snapped at the end. At number 9, I apologize, we have The Shield versus Daniel Bryan, Kane, and The Undertaker on Raw in London, April 22nd, 2013. This came immediately after The Shield attempted to attack The Undertaker, who had celebrated his victory against CM Punk, dedicated to Paul Bearer. Daniel Bryan came to help out The Undertaker, and eventually this would lead to a six-person tag match in London a couple of weeks later, in which the Shield attacked Kane and Bryan in the back when Kane warned Daniel Bryan not to try to hug it out with The Undertaker. Of course, they hugged it out off scene. A fan caught it on camera. But nonetheless, a great match with them attempting to attack Undertaker early, but didn't work out. They came in, and it was a pretty good match, but it was in the end when Seth rolled up Daniel Bryan in what would become the most popular move of 2020s. At number 8, we have both members of the Shield facing off against each other at Battleground 2016, in which Dean Ambrose, ironically, was the WWE champion. Daniel Bryan, longtime rival of the Shield, and Shane McMahon were at ringside representing SmackDown as Dean was being drafted to SmackDown. Of course, Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon stood in support for Raw. Obviously, more so for Seth Rollins, because Seth was the McMahon's chosen favorite during the time in the Authority. Nonetheless, a great match, and in the end, Dean Ambrose would win this match, retaining his WWE Championship and taking it to SmackDown. And guess who held Dean up? The Usos. Bloodline traitors. I'm just kidding. Next, at number 7, we have Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in 2017 reuniting to defeat The Bar, which consists of Sheamus and Cesaro. Now, this came a couple of years after the betrayal, and of course, Dean and Seth weren't really trusting each other at the time, but eventually they grew into each other. They reunited, and at SummerSlam, they would put on a great tag match and win the Raw Tag Team Championships, 2/3 of the Shield. At number 6, we have TLC 2012, an amazing trios match where the Shield had their first match against Ryback, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. And this was starting with their issues with Ryback, and then Bryan and Kane got in the middle of it. This was a great match. We saw Kane get buried after being speared through a barricade. Then we saw Daniel Bryan get powerbombed through a table by Dean Ambrose. No, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns for the final victory. And this came a few minutes after Ryback had threw Seth Rollins off of a high ladder onto a bunch of tables, but didn't make it to the ring in time to break up the pin when Bryan went through the table. Nonetheless, an awesome match, and that was their first match in WWE after causing a lot of chaos, and they went all in and won. It was awesome. At number five, we have at TLC 2017, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins with an honorary Shield member, Kurt Angle, taking on five men: Braun Strowman, Kane, Miz, and the Bars, Claudio, formerly known as Cesaro, and Sheamus. Now, Roman Reigns was out due to medical issues, and not the leukemia part though. But during this time, they chose to get Kurt Angle to be the honorary Shield member, and boy, did he fit well. It also helped the Shield pretty well when Braun Strowman and Kane started fighting amongst each other. This would lead to everyone else throwing Kane and no, it was Braun Strowman in a dumpster. You know you could kill somebody doing that. Don't try that at home. But they threw him inside a trash truck. Nonetheless, great match. And in the end, Kurt Angle took Roman's place during the Shield powerbomb. And instead of going, woo, Kurt Angle said, yeah, because he does that a lot. And he did it well. Nonetheless, the Shield would win that match at TLC 2017. It was awesome. At number four, we have Super Showdown 2018 when Roman Reigns, who at the time was Raw Universal Champion, would face off with his Shield brothers against Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler in a match that tested Dean Ambrose loyalty to the Shield because they wanted to get Ambrose to turn on the Shield, Braun and the other guys, but due to the fact that Roman Reigns saved Jon Moxley from being crushed by Braun Strowman and Braun Strowman getting speared through a barricade, intercepting the attack on Moxley, Moxley stood with the Shield and got the victory for the guys in that match, which was a great match. Unfortunately, Dean Ambrose turned on the Shield a little bit later after Roman admitted he had leukemia and had to relinquish the Universal Championship, which he got back in after SummerSlam 2020 and still has to this very day. At number three, we have The Shield versus New Day at Survivor Series 2017. In case you didn't hear it earlier, Shield Survivor Series 2017 was one of my all-time favorite pay-per-views. One of. And this was another great match that took place that night. And both guys were well. New Day representing SmackDown, Shield representing Raw. Great match, but in the end, it was a super triple power bomb to Kofi Kingston and Ambrose getting the pinfall that would win this match for the Shield and for Raw. At number two, we have the Shield reuniting to have one last match against Drew McIntyre, Bum Corbin, and Bobby Lashley. As I mentioned earlier, Roman Reigns admitted he had leukemia and had to step down and finally got sympathy from the fans. Months later, he came back to an amazing ovation in my former backyard of Atlanta and announced he was in remission. Shortly after, the Shield reunited and they had their final match at Fastlane, which was a great match. And Seth had to be censored for swearing explicitly, but it was still amazing. Drew got the triple power bomb through the table, and I believe it was Baron Corbin who got it in the ring with Mrs. Moxley at ringside on commentary, cheering the whole thing. It was a great match and it was an emotional match because it was their last time together, because Dean Ambrose would leave WWE. His contract was up. He would leave and eventually come to AEW as John Moxley. But this was awesome. Last match, great win, and I hope they reunite at some point soon before the Lord parts the sky. At number one, we have Shield versus Evolution at Extreme Rules 2014, where it was a passing of the torch match with three future world champions facing off against three of the best world champions in Bautista, Randy Orton, and the Game Triple H, who runs the whole show now. And of course, one of the highlights is Seth flying from the balcony stands onto Evolution members as Roman Reigns spears Batista to get the final decisive win. They had a rematch at Payback, which was also awesome, with Seth diving off the Titantron, not 50 feet like Shane did at Backlash, but still a great match. But at number one, we have Evolution and Shield at Extreme Rules 2014. Those are my picks. What's your favorite Shield match? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and that's all the time I have for you today. And I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. See you next time, folks.